I'm Linda Kroll. I've been a therapist, mediator, attorney for over 35 years. I'm also a Chopra certified teacher of meditation, yoga, and Ayurveda. And for 35 years, I've helped individuals and couples, either in individual counseling, couples counseling, or divorce mediation, communicate compassionately. And one of the main tools that I've used, either with my own clients or when I teach other professionals, therapists, mediators, attorneys, when I teach other professionals as well, I give them my Miracle of Empathy handout. So let's take a breath and just go inside and be with the parts of us that are struggling, that are hurting, that are scared, that are angry, and know that we're going to find space for them to do some healing. It's not just relationships with a partner. It can be relationships with a child, with a parent, with a coworker, with any issue that's causing you stress. I want you to be able to share it with others in a way that gets you heard. And the way to do that is to look at what Thich Nhat Hanh says. And Thich Nhat Hanh has said that the ability to reconcile conflicting parties means you have to understand the suffering of both sides. And if we take sides, it's impossible to do the work of reconciliation. And humans want to take sides. This is why the situation gets worse and worse. Are there people who are still available to both sides? They need not do much. They need only do one thing. Go to one side and tell all about the suffering endured by the other side, and go to the other side and tell all about the suffering endured by this side. This is our chance for peace that can change the situation. And sadly, that's not what's happening now. Because if there were more empathy, we'd have a new way to communicate from our highest and best self with compassion and understanding. Because the needs of the heart that everyone has is for more attention, affection, appreciation, and acceptance. And if we're looking at a relationship, then we're going to see how we can get more of that. Now, what I'd like you to do is think of a relationship that brings you conflict right now. Think of a relationship in which you're having some conflict, and just notice what you're telling yourself about the other person. Notice how you're feeling. Notice how your body tenses, and pretend you come to my office for me to help you. Or you've got a client like this coming to your office. And what I want to do is offer you the ability to introduce the concept of what being in self means. Because when we're in self, we are calm, clear, and compassionate. You know those moments? They're usually just moments because we're not in self very much. And when we're in self, we can be calm when there's chaos around us, clear about bringing peace, compassionate with ourselves and others, confident in our ability to come up with some new resolution, connected to what I'm calling your higher self, and courageous in the face of conflict so we can reach peaceful resolutions creatively as we're curious about meeting other people's needs. So let's say Angela came to my office complaining about the fact that her husband is having an affair. She doesn't know what she wants to do about it. She's distraught. She doesn't know how to talk to him about anything. She's thinking her only option is to get divorced. And we talk about the miracle of empathy. Because even when people are angry, underneath there's sadness. Underneath there's a yearning for that understanding, appreciation, acceptance, and attention. So today we're going to talk about how to get it. And we do it with compassionate communication. And when we compassionately communicate, we connect to your higher self. We let go of limiting beliefs, unburden pain from the past, and relate from your heart. So when Angela comes to my office, I invite her to consider questions that I want her to know. So I want to ask her, what does her partner do? And I'm going to ask you, when you think of someone with whom you're having conflict, let's take a breath and think about, what do they do that bothers you? What's their behavior? And then what are your thoughts about their behavior? What are the feelings that you have about their behavior? And then what kind of behavior do you show to that person? Are you walled? Are you angry? Are you judgmental? So we're going to learn a new way to communicate today that allows you to share your deepest feelings, which we often exile. So when Angela came to my office, I asked her these questions. I asked her my magic wand question. If you could wave a magic wand, what is the relationship you'd like to have? And what's in the way? And what's in the way usually is limiting beliefs and judgments about the other person, pain that they're carrying from the past, and an unwillingness to really listen from your higher self instead of trying to justify, defend, or get the other party to get your point of view. So with empathy, we look first to understand and then hope to be understood. And if we're not understood, we can create a new relationship, or we can set a boundary in the current relationship, or we can even end the current relationship. But it starts with listening from your highest self, talking about your feelings from your highest self, and sharing with empathy. I'm an IFS therapist, and Dick Schwartz talks about self in IFS being calm, clear, compassionate. We're often courageous, confident, curious, creative, connected, and grateful. So we're not always in self, are we? We're in parts. And we either have parts that we exile, parts that we manage with, or parts that we get extreme with. But the exiled parts are the parts that we don't mention very much. When we feel hurt, sad, scared, vulnerable, we push that aside. We don't want to show those parts to the world. Some of us feel scared showing our anger too. But this is the what about me, our inner child. Who's ever going to love and care for me the way I need? And instead we manage. We go out in the world and we manage. Some of us are caretaking and codependent. Some of us manage with anger. Some of us are hardworking. But we often put on what I call a pseudo self, where we're pretending we're calm, clear, and compassionate. We're acting as if, but we're really feeling those exiled feelings underneath. And our mind and our ego tell us how we should behave, what our expectations about someone else should be. And unfortunately, expectations, as someone said, are just premeditated resentments. So radically accepting yourself and others is the beginning of change. So when we can't manage those exiled feelings that we're pushing aside, we get extreme in some way. We can get addicted to things, go have an affair, get depressed, drink too much, use drugs, eat too much, have a panic attack, get enraged, decide we want a divorce, which is a choice you can make, but you don't want to make it from your extreme parts. These are ways to numb, because once we've gotten extreme, we can feel guilty about what we've done, but we're still avoiding those exiled feelings over here. These are reactive. So we don't want to be reactive, because when we're reactive, our children suffer. They hear us. They hear us and they see us. And even if we're not loud, they can feel the energy and the conflict. So we want to start being empathetic. And when we are, you can communicate and resolve your differences. You can be more compassionate because you're going to speak honestly about your feelings of fear and vulnerability instead of your judgments about the other person. And as you practice these communication skills, of course, you become a better parent. Because when you pay attention to another's feelings, they feel seen and validated. Attention is one of 4 major needs of the heart. And when they feel understood or accepted, their parts calm down and healing can begin. And often one honest apology for actions or inactions that cause pain can save thousands of dollars in attorney fees, by minimize damage to children, and create an atmosphere of resolution. So when we are communicating from our highest self with empathy, we can compassionately communicate, practice the miracle of empathy, and learn the 5 steps to get what you want and need so that you can have more partnership, passion, and fun. So here are the 5 steps. And this doesn't always happen because we don't always know what we want and need. A lot of us who are codependent have spent a lifetime trying to take care of other people, and instead, we don't know that we deserve to have our needs met. Because when you know what you need and you know you deserve, you can ask for it. And when you ask for it with a sense of calm, you're not giving an ultimatum, You're not making a demand. You're asking for it. And it gives the other party a chance to give you what you want so that you can receive what you want and need and be grateful. And then what happens is healing happens. This is the Miracle of Empathy template, and we're going to go over it piece by piece so that you can see how to use it starting today. So let's go back to Angela and her husband, who she doesn't know how to communicate with because she's just so furious and so hurt and so scared and so angry. And she'd like to tell him what a jerk he's being, or how unfair he's being, or how he's lied to her, and talk all about his behaviors. But what happens too often is that people talk at each other instead of to each other. Have you ever noticed that? People want to be heard before they really listen. People want to be validated instead of creating a new relationship. When they come to my office, even if they're coming as couples, they're often coming for me to take sides, to decide who's right or wrong. And a lot of time people come to me for mediation, for divorce. So they're both pretty much done with the relationship, and they have to figure out all of the finances, parenting, what they're going to do about the house, all the legal and financial issues. Bring in the miracle of empathy. Because I often tell people, it's not difficult to make the decisions once you get to self. What's hard is to get to self. All spiritual beings having a human experience. And I ask my clients, when I talk about spiritual, what does that mean to you? And sometimes it means God, sometimes it means universe, higher power, Buddha nature. The reason I'm asking them is because I want to use their vernacular when I'm talking about self. So if they believe in God and I ask them where God is, they say it's everywhere. And I say, is it in you too? And they say yes. When you're in self, you're listening from that calm, compassionate, witnessing place inside of your heart that allows for healing to happen. Now, compassion and empathy start first with you. In other words, have compassion for the parts of you that are hurt, sad, scared, angry, and learn how to speak for them instead of from them. When you learn to empathize with another's feelings, you can then work together to make positive changes for your future. You can take it one conversation at a time in the direction of peace and understanding. And A is someone that wants to talk about their feelings. And what they do is talk about it by saying, I have something to discuss with you, is now a good time. And the reason you want to have the buy-in that it's a good time is because if someone is listening from a part that's upset or angry or agitated, they can't give you the attention you need. So B, who is the listener, either says yes or picks an alternate time of day to have that conversation. So A would say, when something happens or happens, I feel or felt sad, hurt, or scared. Now, you're also angry, you're also upset, you're also judgmental, but that's not going to give you empathy because the listener, B, is going to be getting defensive, is going to be making rationalizations and defensiveness. And what you want to do instead is to allow them to listen safely. So talking about your sadness, fear, and hurt are the way to begin. Now, some codependents exile their anger. We don't talk about our anger, but often anger has been the underlying communication style. So if you really want to go deep, speak to the fact that you're angry because you're sad, hurt, and scared. And then B listens, hears, and understands. In other words, he would say or she would say, I hear that when you say, so let's say Angela goes to her husband and says, I have something to talk with you about, is now a good time. And of course, he doesn't know this yet, but she's going to help him learn it. And she said, I need you to know that when you lied to me, I felt sad, hurt, and scared. And as he listens, he says to her, I hear you say that when I lied to you, you felt sad, hurt, and scared. Is that right? And he needs to use the same words because she needs to acknowledge that they're correct or repeat the message. Because when he says that, he's at least listening and hearing her. And then he would say, I understand that when I lied, you felt sad, hurt, and scared. And the understanding is often what's missing from empathy. We go to, okay, I hurt you, I'm sorry. I hurt you, I'm sorry. But the understanding is necessary. So if her husband could hear her and say, I hear you, I understand your sadness, your hurt, and your pain, without starting to justify. Because what he needs to do next is say, I'm sorry. I want to learn a new way for us to communicate where I don't lie, and I am sorry. And the more you let your partner know, or the person you're speaking with know that you care, healing can happen. So Angela would then say, thank you. In the future, I would like to feel that we can talk honestly with each other about everything, even if it means they might separate or get a divorce. And he would say, I can do one or more of those, or perhaps we can try not to talk about this issue, or go into mediation, or I'll give up the affair and we can try to heal our relationship. But it starts with empathy. And that's what I want to offer you, is the ability to bring empathy to all your relationships, because you truly are, I believe we all are, a channel of love and a beacon of light. If you acknowledge that's who you are at your core, then you can begin to make these changes in your life. And estrangement and cutoff is not the answer, because there's so much stress right now in the news, in our relationships. And if we can compassionately communicate with knowing that love is the answer, but it starts with loving ourselves. And it starts with loving ourselves enough to know how to speak from our highest self about the parts of us that are hurt, sad, and scared. And if you're thinking of a divorce, we can change the face of divorce one heart at a time, because your family can be peacefully and respectfully restructured. And if you do get a divorce, you can have a compassionate divorce where you've healed the issues with empathy, and you make plans that heals the relationship no matter what form it takes in the future. Breath. Wayne Dyer says, when we change the way we look at something, what we look at changes. Let's look at all conflicts from our higher self. Let's look at the pain and suffering of all parties. Let's understand that everyone is scared and sad and hurt, that we're all doing the best we can, and that there is a way to negotiate behavior change. If, as Thich Nhat Hanh, we can get to one side and tell them about the pain and suffering of the first side, and get to the other side and tell them about the pain and suffering of this side. This is my prayer for all that's going on in the world right now. This is my hope and prayer for you and your relationships. And please contact me if you need any help in your own relationships, or if you're a professional that wants to learn more about the compassionate mediation process. Thank you so much for joining me. If you have any questions, please get in touch, and I look forward to staying connected. Bye for now.